We hear a lot about gut health and the connection that the gut really has to so many other parts of the body, the brain, the emotions, the regulation.
Everything begins in the gut. 70% of the immune system is in the gut. 90% of all of the neurotransmitters that you make, like serotonin, is in the gut. When we start eating things that they don't recognize, every other part of that wonderful system goes into imbalance. Feed them what they want, and your life will be okay. Within 24 hours, they're able to, your profile can change. And you know your body better than anyone else.
So let's dive into the 9 arms of wellness.
So the 9 arms of wellness is...
Welcome to Midlife Catalyst, a place where ordinary people share extraordinary stories of doing life differently. I'm Amanda Younts, and I'm excited to have today's guest on to discuss all things health and wellness. Anu Simh is a board-certified functional health coach and graduate of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. She blends her background in organic chemistry, Ayurvedic counseling, and holistic nutrition to guide clients toward vibrant, lasting health. Her approach focuses on real, simple solutions that fit into everyday life and includes delicious meals and desserts. Anu's work centers on gut health, sleep quality, circadian rhythm, and the brain's reward system to reduce inflammation, manage cravings, and support sustainable weight loss. Through her 9 Arms of Wellness program, she teaches how to use food as medicine and draws from over 100 dietary theories to support physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, all things that are so critical for me, and I know so many of our listeners. Anu, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Wow, that was long. Thank you, Amanda. It's really nice to be here and talk all things health with you. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm just curious, how did this industry become a passion and a profession for you?
Yeah. Well, I think most of us practitioners really have our own story, right? Something that propelled this desire to help others. So mine is no different. Had always been healthy until I wasn't. And it just happened so quickly, I didn't even see it coming. And maybe the signs were always there. Now, knowing what I know now, I knew that the signs were there. I just chose to ignore them. And then, one day I wake up and I'm not able to digest my food. I'm like, freaking, what is happening? These are all the foods that I grew up, on. Why am I having such a hard time digesting them? Bloating one day, okay the next. Really frustrated with that. Went to so many doctors. And the answer I kept getting from them is, your labs are normal. Everything looks fine. But I was feeling anything but normal, and I knew that there was something happening in my gut. So that's when I decided to put my science background to work. I said, okay, we're talking, Amanda, at a time when we didn't have the internet, and I had to just spend a lot of, I'm dating myself, but I had to spend a lot of time at the library for, just playing detective. I really felt like there was that very singular moment when I decided that I'm no longer a patient. I have to be a detective of these symptoms and figure this out. And so that's how I sort of bumped into the microbiome research. And I utterly fell in love with it. I said, oh my gosh, this could be it. This could be the missing piece that I'm experiencing. And mind you, in those days, it was all just starting out. The Human Microbiome Project had started. There's just a little bit of information. But even then, we knew that there were certain things that our microbes liked eating, certain things that they didn't especially care for. And I knew that everything that I was doing in the name of convenience were things that my microbes really didn't fancy. So that's how I started, you know, digging deeper and started making changes, and really took a good hard look at myself and say, is convenience important or is your health important? And things started changing slowly. And I learned so much along the way. And finally, one day, I could eat just about anything again. And I just started feeling like I was flourishing again. I had more energy. And of course, when you heal, you feel like, gosh, I need to go and tell the world. I need to heal someone else. I need to give someone else hope. And yeah, that's how it all started for me as well.
I love that. I think we're first students and then teachers, right? So,
Yeah.
what we hear a lot about gut health and the connection that the gut really has to so many other parts of the body, the brain, the emotions, the regulation. What does that really mean for people that this is a new term or a new concept?
Yeah. Yeah, I always tell my clients that everything begins in the gut. And this is it's not like I actually discovered this. I mean, from a long time, people have always felt like, oh, this is where it begins. Gut health is so connected. And I assume that people are researchers and doctors were always saying it, especially in the natural space or the functional space, because they saw the connection. They saw that 70% of the immune system is in the gut. 90% of all of the neurotransmitters that you make, like serotonin, is in the gut. The gut and the brain are always talking. The gut and the immune system are talking. So there's no doubt about it. The gut plays a huge part, and specifically the gut microbiome. These are like trillions of bacteria in our gut. They've always been in specifically the colon, and they've always been part of our journey. I don't think there's ever a time when we didn't have them. And so I tend to call them our forever guests. They're not going anywhere. The sooner we figure out how is a symbiotic partnership, and how do we respect it and take care of it, then we get lots of benefits from it. So in any symbiotic partnership, really to kind of keep it simple, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, right? I'm oversimplifying here, but we've co-evolved with our microbes, and handed over digesting of fiber, the undigested part of any plant source, to them. They use the fiber to produce some very healthy compounds for us called short chain fatty acids. These short chain fatty acids, especially butyrate, really help us with the gut lining barrier. They act like energy fuel for our colon. They help with decreasing inflammation, just a slew of things that they do for us. So, and in return, what we're giving them the fiber and a place to stay, and they're responding back, with all of these good things that they are doing for us. So when that goes awry, when we start eating things that they don't recognize, like I was doing back in the day, our every other part of that wonderful system goes into imbalance. Your gut and brain stop talking. There's an imbalance in how they speak to each other. The gut and the brain are talking. The gut is sending way more messages to the brain than the other way around through the vagus nerve. And if you're not eating healthy foods for the microbiome, then there are certain species that just tend to just die off. And that that exacerbates the or opens the door for more pathogenic bacteria to enter that arena. So your microbial profile starts changing. So in every possible way, I think even though I'm kind of going into so many different directions, the answer is simple: feed them what they want, and your life will be okay. It's really simple. And I think nutrition today is so complicated. I mean, nutrition is a complicated science, it's a new science. But what we know for sure, back when I started researching the library, the one thing that was very clear was, oh, I think these guys really like fiber. So many years later, now that I've written the book, researched before writing the book, the message hasn't changed that much. Of course, we know so much more about them, but the underlying message is feed them fiber. So that's become my big mantra, Amanda. Like, if I can get people to just listen to that one thing, saying eat more fiber, then things start shifting. And of course, it's not that easy. Even for me, when I started, I had starved my gut bugs so much. They are looking at fiber like, I don't know how to do this.
Right.
And so it takes a bit of time, it takes patience, but generally speaking, when you stick with it and maybe just get some help along the way with enzymes and things like that, you are eventually going to. That's the fantastic thing about these microbes and the microbiome. They respond to diet very quickly. There are studies that show within 24 hours they're able to, your profile can change. In fact, there was a study done, comparing women in Pittsburgh to rural South African women. And they had the two sets of women swap their diets. And within 14 days, the women in Pittsburgh had more anti-inflammatory markers because they had adopted the really healthy rural diet. And the South African women, poor women, they had adopted the Pittsburgh standard American diet, and they started noticing a lot of the pro-inflammatory markers. So this is something that we see in a lot of research and things like that. And I also see this in practice. My clients will come to me wanting to lose weight, which they do when you start focusing on the microbes. But the interesting thing is they'll say, "Oh, I don't feel the cravings anymore. My mood is calm. I don't. It's not yo-yoing." And all of that tells me that they're at play and they're doing some really amazing things. And because you don't see them, you somehow just, you have to recognize that they're still there, taking care of us.
So I love hearing that because I know one of your mottos, in addition to feed them fiber, is that there isn't a quick fix. Everyone tends to want that quick fix, but it's not sustainable. It's not lifelong. But 14 days to me is pretty quick. If you start to do the right things and start to see and feel the healing, that is okay. I can deal with 14 days and then beyond. What would be some immediate things people could start to do to turn it around? Like, not a quick fix, but things.
No. The first thing is to really protect your home environment. And by that, I mean, just make sure that you don't have all the processed stuff in your house. If you don't have donuts or ice cream or cookies, you're less apt to go at like 11 p.m. at night and go looking for them. So right there, you're already making smarter choices. Because I will tell you, if you have a plate of cookies, and you have a plate of broccoli, you are going to the plate of cookies always. It's that dopamine regulation, and it's kind of hardwired into us to love these really hyper palatable foods. So the first thing is to take away the temptation. Go really slow. There's no need to kind of rush it. You know your body better than anyone else. Just ask yourself, where do I begin? And if I want to start with fiber, and just a gentle reminder, fiber comes only from the plant kingdom. So, pick your sources. So in the book, I have I have a framework. So when people have a system, it's so much easier to follow it rather than saying eat 40 grams of fiber. That doesn't help any of us because it's so hard to count anything, right? So, but
Mhm.
if you give people a system and say, well, there's the foundational layers, which are your fruits and veggies. Let's eat more of that. And then when you're ready, add some of these enhancers, and that could be your good fats, it could be nuts and seeds, it could be fermented foods and things like that. And finally, when you feel like, I think I got these two layers pretty well, it's become a part of my life, it's become a habit. It's become a habit just like brushing my teeth. That's when a habit really kind of becomes procedural. Then you add things that are functional, like beta glucans, like polyphenols, and things like that. So I believe that everyone's needs a very organized way of looking at changes in their diet, but it doesn't have to be super complicated. Because let's say right now you're eating, you might say, hey, I'm listening to me. You might say, but I eat broccoli. That's fantastic. That's the first step. But see if you can change that up to maybe buying broccoli from the Chinese market, because that's a different variety of broccoli. Maybe the following week you're doing broccoli sprouts instead of just broccoli. Just broccoli itself has so many different kinds of broccoli, and these subtle changes in broccoli is enough to make your gut happy.
Okay, that's
And then
good to
with
know.
something like a cruciferous veggie, for example, like cabbage, add some spices to it. Things like mustard, fennel. It'll awaken the cabbage and give you more anti-cancer compounds. So food is fantastic. There's so much at our fingertips. Just a matter of adding and just watching the magic happen.
Yes. I always feel so much better immediately after anyway. So it kind of builds that momentum of I eat broccoli, I feel better, and then my body starts to crave more of those healthy
Yeah.
fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, there's definitely a reason for that. I mean, you are creating more gut bugs that can digest these foods and send you those signals through the gut brain, through the vagus nerve. So it's telling us, and a lot of us, we think it's our willpower, right? You say, oh my gosh, I just can't say no to ice cream. But it's way more than willpower. There's somebody there who is orchestrating this, and if we start feeding them the right things, and just, I always tell my listeners and my clients, do it as an experiment for a week. What do you have to lose? If you've been on a very restrictive diet for whatever reason, maybe weight loss, um, or you've seen something on Instagram and you want to follow something like a juice fast or something like that, you just try this for a week and just say, I want my plate to look like this. I want to anchor my protein. I surround it with lots of different kinds of fiber. Maybe that's starting with just green leafy vegetables and some good fat. I mean, that's a great start for
Right.
anybody, and it's a far cry from all of the hyper palatable foods and packaged foods. And I'm not saying that ultra processed foods cannot be a part of our life, because sometimes our lives are so busy, and there are certain things that maybe is okay, like maybe tomato sauce and things like that. So we can't just throw the baby with the bathwater. And I know that that happens a lot, because all ultra processed foods are deemed bad. But sometimes when we're so busy, we have children, we have to go to work, and or maybe we don't have the resources, or you don't know how to cook. It is so nice to have that available to us. So we pick and choose, make some raw choices, add some of these.
I love that
Does that make
because
sense?
it does. It's not that I don't have time to cook. I just don't like to cook. It
Hmm.
stresses me out. It makes me more angry than if I could do something easier. It puts me in a bad mood. So
Yeah,
knowing that I don't have to spend, 2 hours in the kitchen on some
yeah.
pretty in detail foods
And Amanda, you're
makes
not alone. And I see so many people say, my gosh, I've done this enough. I don't want to do it anymore.
right.
In fact, me, for example, I speak so much about food and I see other people making these beautiful, plates of food for Instagram or whatever. I'm like, oh gosh, I don't think I have the energy for this. That's the reason. It was my own feeling about this that made me develop these formatted recipes. So by that I mean, if I give you a format and I say, there are little sections of, let's say, greens and bitter greens and protein and fat. All you do is look at the format and say, okay, I'm just adding all of that into my salad bowl, picking a nice salad dressing, voila, you have a beautiful salad. Tomorrow, you feel like you want something Mexican. You can change that exact same salad with some Mexican spices, and things like that. So I think that's easier to replicate than full on recipes, slaving for 2 hours. Who has the time? And it's not necessary. Is because your gut microbiome does not know the difference. It's
Good.
saying, "Oh, Amanda's
Good.
just
I feel
feeding me
better.
some really yummy food."
Okay. I feel much better then. So let's dive into the 9 arms of wellness. What is that model and what does that entail?
So the 9 arms of wellness is my philosophy, and it's also my business. And it really started when I was just observing clients. I went into this space thinking food is the biggest needle mover, and I do think it is. But I noticed that it wasn't the only one. Clients would be eating really well, but they would be rushing and just they weren't mindfully eating, or they weren't mindful about their life, or they were not moving enough. And I started seeing the value of all the different arms, like hydration, sleep, self-care, connections. So, and as I sat with it, I thought these are the 9 arms that are almost like pillars of health. When you eat really well, you sleep really well, you hydrate your body, you move, and you take care of your autonomic nervous system by doing either breath work or being mindful. And then you have people like yourself, surround yourself, have that community, and take care of your body, invest in self-care, and put a little bit of thought to environment. And when I say environment, I mean both inside and outside, the trauma that we hold inside and also the toxins that we get from the outside. If we start looking at both of them, there's so many things that clear up, and we are able to digest food better. The same food that you feel today that you're not able to digest could not even, maybe it is not even stemming from digestion. It could be from that HPA axis that's really out of whack. So that's how I came up with the 9 arms.
I love it. We talk about that a lot on the podcast. And I will say, part of what I'm noticing, and I know some of the other listeners as we're entering this midlife menopause stage, is that even the foods and the movement and things that we did, I will speak for myself, that worked for me, in my 40s are no longer working now at this stage of life.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
definitely, because your body is changing. Yeah.
and so we have to revisit what we're doing and make sure
Yeah.
that we're recognizing those changes pretty quickly. I think I'm pretty aware of
Yeah.
inflammation and bloating and things moving. But we
Yeah.
get so busy, you look up and it's like 3 years later and there's a lot of weight gain. I just know in talking to a
Yeah.
lot of my clients and listeners that this is a tough time for women
It
especially.
is. Yeah. Like I always tell my clients, the rules of the game have changed. You're in a new body. Your microbiome has changed. The microbiome has over 60 genre of bacteria that are, it's called collectively the strobolome. Its main job is to get rid of estrogen, metabolize it and get rid of estrogen. So if you're not, if you're just not taking care of it, or even just research is showing us that our microbiome in menopause changes and starts looking like that of a man. So at this time, more than any other time, that fiber becomes very, very important for women. And I am really glad that protein is getting its due recognition, but along with that, if you're not adding the fiber, it can be detrimental to the gut. And I say that, I'm not saying it, the research is saying it.
Right.
When people eat just protein, what happens is most of the protein gets digested in the upper parts of digestion. But if there's an overconsumption of protein but not enough fiber, remember your gut microbiome is looking for that fuel, but it's not getting any fiber. But it's not going to say no to the protein. It will digest. There are certain bacteria that have become very adept at digesting the remnant protein, but it's also going to produce some toxic metabolites like ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, methane. All of these kind of toxic metabolites can cause constipation, can cause that smelly gas, can cause bloating. So these are all symptoms of an imbalanced gut. So the idea is not to say no protein, support that protein. And that's why I always say anchor your protein, but surround with fiber. So you're happy, you're feeling satiated, you're putting on some muscle, but your microbiome is happy as well.
Which is so important. So you have a couple of frameworks, the MBHR
Hmm.
framework. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Amanda, when clients were coming to me many, many years ago, I did have success getting them to lose weight, and they would go off, and then 1 year later they would come back and say, yeah, I gained the weight back. I started really looking into that, and I thought, what is happening? They spent, the poor woman or the poor guy, they spent so much time and money losing this weight. How did it come back? So research is showing us that 80% of people who lose the weight gain it back. So I decided that I have to really reverse engineer this and really start thinking about maintenance.
Yes.
If somebody wants to live at an ideal weight, what would that look like? So keeping that in mind, knowing what I know about the microbiome, the research that connects obesity with poor microbial diversity, um, menopausal belly fat, and the cortisol spikes. So that's our hormones. So M being microbiome, brain plays a huge role in it. And hormones, of course, do. And R stands for reframing the mindset. So I put all of this together and reverse engineered it. So my client walks away knowing that after the program, she still is in a good place because she understands how her maintenance looks like. So I think there's a subtle difference between management of weight and maintaining a weight. Living at an ideal weight feels kind of freeing. When I hear people say I'm maintaining it, I'm managing it, it sounds like a chore. So we start thinking at the very end, how would it not be a chore?
Mhm.
How would this be just who you are and sustainable for the rest of your life? Because postmenopause is the rest of your life. The different aspects to it, it starts with a lot of these symptoms, and the symptoms kind of settle down, and then you kind of, settle into this phase of life. But the weight could keep going up and up if we don't take care of all of these four components. So that's how I came up with MBHR.
Okay, that's very helpful. I need to dive into that. And so I know several of us tend to get this feeling of we've lived most of our life in the yo yo. Restrict, and then you gain, restrict and gain, restrict and gain. Is there ever a point when you've done so much damage to your body that there's no way to restore and repair? Or is there hope?
No, there is hope. So we've seen from studies that people like Kevin Hall and all the nutrition experts have done that there is hope. And from a microbial standpoint, we know that it's just a matter of, it may be a little bit more challenging to start growing new bacteria. And that's an imminent danger for all of us, because every day we're losing species because of the way we eat and our life. And it's not just about that. It's our stress. It's a lack of sleep. It's antibiotics. It's toxins. It's environmental, the craziness that's bombarding our microbes. So I feel like if you go into it with this collective sense of responsibility and saying, this is an heirloom that I pass on to the next generation, immediately it's not about you anymore. You are just, we're all responsible. We want to do the right thing. So if we were to say, I want to take care of this for my grandchild or my child, everything changes. The conversation changes. How do I take care of me today so I have all the incredible microbes that I'm going to pass on to my children, to my grandchildren? Because that's what's happening. Mothers are passing it on to their kids, and the kids are to their kids, right? So I feel like when you start thinking about it that way, it can help you make small little changes every day, and small changes result in big shifts in life. There's no doubt about it. It's just that we feel all consumed, want everything to happen today. So if someone's listening to me, I would say go slow. There's no rush. Start with small little changes that your life allows you to make, and then there'll be a time when you can do all of it. But the little changes need to happen for the big ones to arrive.
I absolutely agree. And it's so true. And it's so important to remember and keep that perspective
Yeah.
for sure. So I know you've written a book and you have an amazing website with a lot of resources. So talk a little bit about how people can dive further into your work.
Yeah. Well, the book has been like a labor of love. I spent about 3 to 4 years researching it, and then shooting all those recipes. And so it really came from my clients asking me to write a book, about the microbiome. So the first section of the book is in very simple language about the microbiome. The second section is a diet that I propose on how to feed the microbiome. So there's a very clear framework that you can follow. And the last section are just recipes from different cultures. So it's not culture specific, because my clients are from all over the world, and I wanted to honor everyone. And also the microbiome really responds to cultural shifts as well. So I thought that was important. And the book itself, you could buy it on Amazon, and it comes with an accompanying app once you buy the book, there's a little QR code inside, and which will lead you to my page, and that'll take you to my app. And the app has in many features to keep you grounded in this, and take care of your you know take care of lifelong health. And there's a membership that goes along with it, so I always make it very affordable for everyone, so people can form community, and you're the 5 people you surround yourself with. And if all of you are thinking about how do I feed my microbes, conversation shifts. Your grandchildren are going to be hearing it, and they're going to start caring for their microbiome as well.
I love that our surroundings are so important and really do impact pretty much everything. The mindset, as you said, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual wellness, all of it.
Yeah.
So, what piece of advice do you want to leave the listeners with?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece of advice, I wouldn't even say advice, I would say this is a mantra that has really helped me. Every night I ask myself, how do I feed you? How can I feed you guys? Because I see them. Once you start seeing them, meaning your gut microbiome, there's this connection that you feel. You're no longer alone. You're more microbial than human. And that we know. So start caring. Like every night I soak some beans, I prep for the next day because I have a busy life. And if I'm not able to do it, I ask my husband, I say, can you please take care of this? Have this conversation with your microbes. And it's a little joke but it's become very real, and it really helps us stay grounded to what we believe in. So just a small little tip, really stop thinking about them, and things begin to shift. Keep it
That's
small.
great. Yes. Start small and stay consistent. I think
Yeah.
those are some great, great words of wisdom there. And I really think that brings into play that you're not at war with your body,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
you're one unified whole collective, which
Yeah.
changes a lot of
There's
that
something to be
mindset.
said. Yeah. I feel like when I heard that the very first time, Amanda, I just felt so safe. I felt like I'm not in this alone. I have
Right.
somebody with such incredible intelligence about who I am, and they're going to help me. And they're inside of me. That's, I don't know, it's just a fascinating thing for me. And I did nerd out on that, but I think everyone is, especially young children, young people. My big passion is that getting this message out to schools.
Yes.
So you know the food in the cafeteria changes. They start learning about the microbiome. This should not be information just for the few scientists out there, or a few doctors, or a few people like us. Everyone needs to know the incredible power these microbes have in our journey, and they're not going anywhere. So the sooner we take care of them, better for us. So,
Yes, absolutely. And if people want to reach out and connect with you, your website is
9armsofwellness.com, and
perfect.
Instagram is at 9armsofwellness. And I do have a
Perfect.
quiz. I have a quiz on my website that people can get a little glimpse of how they're taking care of their microbiome.
I love that. And I will link those in the show notes so that people can go take the quiz. I love any sort of quiz that tells me any
Yeah.
insights about myself. Well, so I will go and take that and follow up and list those resources for our listeners, because you have a wealth of information on your website, and just what you bring to us today was so helpful.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be here and talk all things microbiome.
Yes, I love it. Thank you.